Many members spoke on the challenges faced by low-income and vulnerable families. I understand their concerns intimately, as I spend a lot of time working with and helping these vulnerable families improve on their quality of life. Recently, one Madam J approached HDB for a public rental flat. She was a childcare teacher, and her monthly income was $1,800, exceeding our $1,500 income ceiling. However, she was a divorcee and had to raise 4 school-going children without support from family. I discussed the case of HDB. We waived the income ceiling and gave her a 2-room public rental flat. While she waited, HDB gave her interim rental housing. HDB also referred her to the Community Development Council, or CDC, for skills upgrading. This way, she could raise her income and one day realize home ownership for herself and her 4 kids. Helping Madam J and her children was not just about giving a roof over their heads. It's about stabilizing the family. It's about ensuring the children's needs are met and they are not further disadvantaged by the family's circumstances. Madam J's case is not unique, and we've seen many such cases. Each day, I go through many housing appeals, individually and personally. I do this because I know circumstances vary. To help, we have to understand the individual circumstance so we can better assess their needs. This government has always been committed to helping the weak and vulnerable victims of circumstances. For them, we give support to ease their situation, and over time, this has increased along with our resources to do so as a country. If they have children, we want to ensure that their children are not denied education and opportunities. They will lift their families from poverty and avert an intergenerational problem. This is why we do not just give some handout or benefit without making the effort to properly understand their circumstances and take a hands-on approach to provide practical help and meet their long-term needs. Let me elaborate this government's approach in helping low-income and the vulnerable families. First, we support low-income families to achieve home ownership. We believe that home ownership will increase their self-worth and provide a better and stable environment for their children to be raised in. A low-income first-timer household earning $1,500 or less can own a brand new 2-room flat in a non-mature estate for around just $50,000. How? Well, we give a substantial market discount on the price of our 2-room flat to price our 2-room flats affordably. On top of this, we provide them with additional CPF housing grant of $40,000 and special CPF housing grant of $20,000. They can fully pay up for their flat using their CPF. They do not need to fork out additional cash. And if they have 2 or fewer children and would like to focus their resources on raising their children well, they can join the HOPE scheme and receive, among other benefits, a $50,000 CPF housing grant. Second, for the minority who cannot afford to own a flat, we provide public rental flats. These flats provide basic and good housing. Last year, we increased the supply of these flats to 50,000. We are ramping this up to 60,000, a significant 20% increase. Third, in administering the public rental scheme, we have in place rules to focus help at the vulnerable while ensuring that we do not encourage imprudent behavior or erode the work ethic. However, in the application of these rules, we will consider the merit of each case and exercise flexibility and compassion to help those in dire need. Mr. Lim Biao Chuan and some other MPs have raised a concern over the rental cliff that tenants face when their income increases to above $800. ESM Go first alerted us to this 2 years ago. Since then, we have fixed it. For these tenants, HDB waives their rent increase so that they continue to pay the lower rent for one tenancy term of 2 years. they will not suffer a net loss in income. At the end of 2 years, if their income increase is still insufficient relative to their rent increases, HDB will continue to suspend the rent increase. As a general rule, no one in HDB's 1- and 2-room rental units will see their wage increases taken away by HDB through rental adjustments. We have already fixed this problem, and should you come across any of such cases, let me know immediately, and we will solve it. Market rents have increased significantly, but we have not adjusted the public rental structure since 2006, and we have no plans to do so. However, we need to maintain a fine balance between keeping rental rates low so as to provide support and not discourage improvements in income through work. And on the other hand, adjusting rental rates where appropriate to reflect in relation to real costs and encourage tenants who are able to progress on to own a flat when they are ready. Ms. Lilian, Mr. Peng Ying Huat, and Mr. Mohamad Faisal Abdul Manap suggested that we relax our rules to allow more to qualify for public rental flats. We have and will continue to review our rules from time to time. More importantly, let me assure the MPs that in our administration of the rules, we will be sympathetic and responsive to those in need. We set an income criterion of $1,500 per month so that we can focus our help to the bottom 20th income percentile. However, we do not apply the criterion rigidly. We go through each case and are prepared to offer rental flats to those in financial difficulties, even if their income exceeds $1,500, like in the case of Madam J earlier. We have debarment for certain cases to deter Singaporeans from cashing out on their HDB flat, depleting their cash proceeds and seeking further government subsidies through public rental flats, thereby competing with those who really are truly needy. Nevertheless, again, we have applied this rule sensibly, and does not prevent us from lifting the debarment to help victims of misfortune, or allocating them interim rental housing while they wait for their public rental flats. As public rental flats are heavily subsidized, only Singapore citizen households qualify. We recognize the needs of low-income citizens with foreign spouses and do consider them on a case-by-case basis, but priority goes to Singaporeans. We do hope that Singaporean citizens planning to marry foreign spouses will also be responsible in planning and providing for their spouses, including their housing needs. Often, it is easier to say yes than to say no. Saying no can make us appear heartless and unsympathetic. We do administer our rules with a heart. However, while we try our best to help, we must be clear about the relative priority of different needs. There will be instances where we have to be firm and say no. For instance, a middle-aged couple approached HDB for a rental flat. They were not in financial hardship and had in fact just sold their flat and secured cash proceeds of almost $200,000. They could have bought a 2-room flat or a studio apartment, but chose not to. HDB was not able to accede to their appeal for a rental flat because there were obvious cases of more deserving and truly needy compared to them. Likewise, we have had cases of elderly couples seeking public rental flats because they do not want to live with any of their many married children. The solution to the situation should start with exploring family support, and HDB facilitates by referring them to the Family Service Centres, or FSC, for family counselling should they face relationship issues. Fourthly, we make sure that we help vulnerable families holistically and fundamentally to prevent entrenchment and to help them get out of their problem situation. Rental assistance can only provide immediate relief to housing needs, but does not resolve underlying social problems. We have to complement it with upstream social intervention to support vulnerable families in employment, training, financial management, and their children's education. This is to give them a leg up and help them progress progress on to owning a flat when they are ready. MND and HDB works closely with other ministries, the local advisors, and social service agencies like FSCs and CDCs on this. Mr. Mohamad Faisal Abdul Manap suggested that HDB collaborate with voluntary welfare organizations to assist housing appeals holistically and thoroughly. We agree, and HDB is already doing this. For individual cases which have multiple social problems, HDB also participates in case conferences with other social agencies to jointly work out sustainable solutions. Community initiatives can play a vital part too. Coordinated by the Southeast CDC, I piloted a scheme in my constituency, mobilizing local resources as the grassroots and the FSCs, such as the grassroots and FSCs in the locality, self-help groups, resident volunteers, and HDB, to help vulnerable families with dependent children stabilize their situation and build capacity to cope. These families are residing in interim rental housing, and as the House knows, this is housing for those with little family support and no housing options. For each case, social workers work very closely with HDB officers to help the families chart out their respective housing pathways aimed at permanent housing. Adults are assisted with relevant training and employment assistance to improve on their income earning potential. Childcare needs are met to enable mothers to work. Grassroots leaders befriend the families, ensuring that they attend monthly parenting workshops on budgeting and family development. Residents in the neighborhood volunteer to supervise the children in their homework on a nightly basis, while self-help group provides heavily subsidized weekly tuition classes. From crisis and vulnerability, we provide stability and hope to these families through the support from the community and government. This scheme has been running for a year, and we have reached out to 200 families in need, with 2 in 5 successfully moving out into longer-term housing solutions. We are heartened by the progress and will continue to help more. However, getting these families back onto the path of resilience cannot be achieved solely through the social support infrastructure and that the government and its community partners have put in place. It requires families to also take the initiative and responsibility in sustaining their own efforts. Let me conclude that public rental flats provide a safety net that we hope these families see as a temporary safety net. The government and social agencies together hold this net to catch those who fall, and then, with a stretch, help them bounce back. We will not allow anyone to fall through the cracks, but too much slack and the net will only enmesh and entrap. Thus, as we exercise flexibility and compassion, we need to guard against entrenchment and keep the hope of home ownership and progress alive for rental tenants. Our job is not just to house, but also to enable and empower those who are in need, so that they can provide for a stable home and better future for their children. If they are able to secure jobs with CPF contribution, grow their incomes, and build up their savings in a sustainable manner, home ownership is or can once again be within their reach. I will now address Mr. Gan Tiampo's concern on rent burden in light of the rising cost of living. Mr. Gan suggested that we should also play a more active role in controlling the rents of shops and factories in our HDB towns and industrial estates to prevent higher rental costs from being passed on to consumers. HDB's commercial and industrial properties are let out on a 3-year term tenancies via open bidding. This is a fair and transparent system. Since 2009, HDB has assisted tenants who face more than 10% rent increase during renewal by staggering the rent increase over a 3-year term tenancy. As a result, rent increases for HDB's commercial and industrial properties are at a substantially lower pace compared to the industry. HDB will continue to monitor the market situation closely and roll out additional measures where necessary. Ms. Faza Jamal and Mrs. Lina Cham asked about the food security plans in place for Singaporeans. Let me give an update. MND chairs the Inter-Ministry Committee on Food Security to coordinate and look into holistic measures to mitigate our food security risks and vulnerabilities. Our approach to food security is multi-pronged. As a small country importing most of its food, diversification of our sources of food is our key strategy. This is supplemented by some local production of key food items such as eggs, fish and leafy vegetables, and stockpiling to ensure a resilient food supply. We work closely with the local food industry and conduct overseas trade missions to explore potential sources of food in the region, such as Vietnam and Myanmar, and further away, such as South America. We also provide funding via AVA's Food Fund for companies interested in exploring contract farming overseas, for example, fish and rice farming in Vietnam and Cambodia, respectively. To raise local production, our farms can tap on AVA's Food Fund to upgrade their capacities and capabilities, carry out R&D, and adopt new technologies. For example, Sky Greens Private Limited successfully applied for the fund for the construction and installation of vertical farming system, which was co-developed with ABA. We need to look for more of such innovations to help boost productivity as our land is scarce for farming. Key to our food security is also Singaporeans' food intake habits. While we may culturally be accustomed to eating fresh or chilled meats and live seafood, we need to be open and accepting to food alternatives or substitutes like frozen meats, which are in no way nutritionally inferior to fresh meats. AVA's efforts at encouraging greater consumption of frozen food has seen some progress, and the consumption of frozen chicken, for instance, has increased from 51% to 60% over the last 10 years. Even as we open up our new food sources, we must ensure that imports do not carry food safety risks or diseases. AVA has a rigorous food safety system that takes care of food safety from farm to fork. It consists of overseas source accreditation, certification, inspection, and testing of imports upon arrival in Singapore, a traceability system, and consumer education efforts on food safety. AVA also ensures the safety of genetically modified or GM foods through risk assessment before they are allowed into Singapore. Ultimately, the government, industry, and general public must play our parts so that we can continue to enjoy the peace of mind when we tuck in to our favorite foods. Thank you.